I've been a 9mm guy for a long time. I've carried it, trained with it, and stocked plenty of it away, like just about every prepared shooter who remembers what ammo shelves look like when panic buying kicks in. But over the last couple of years, I've started noticing something interesting. More and more shooters, including me, have been experimenting with cartridges outside the traditional 9mm lane. And here in 2026, that trend is becoming impossible to overlook. A handful of newer calibers have begun moving into territory that 9mm once owned almost exclusively. So what changed? Why are experienced shooters suddenly looking beyond the cartridge that dominated concealed carry, law enforcement, and civilian defensive use for decades? Today, we're taking a close look at the calibers finding their way into more range bags, more carry guns, and more conversations across the firearms community, and why 9mm is no longer the automatic answer it used to be. Before we get rolling, take a second to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Those small clicks help support the channel and make it possible for me to keep bringing straight-to-forward firearms content your way. It's completely your choice, but every bit of support helps. Now let's jump right into it. Walk into almost any range in America, and chances are you'll find someone loading magazines full of 9mm. For years, that described me perfectly. A Glock 19 on my belt, bulk range ammo in the vehicle, and a setup that simply worked. The reasons were obvious: affordability, effectiveness, and availability. 9mm earned its reputation honestly. It wasn't necessarily the absolute best in every category, but it performed well enough across the board to become the standard. Back in the 1980s, NATO adopted it as the military benchmark, and that influence spread throughout law enforcement. Later, when the FBI moved away from 40 Smith & Wesson and revisited its ballistic testing standards, it found that modern 9mm ammunition delivered the penetration and expansion it required while offering reduced recoil and greater capacity. That decision triggered a major shift. Agencies changed calibers. Civilian shooters followed. Then the concealed carry explosion arrived. When pistols like the SIG P365 entered the market, offering double-digit capacity in an incredibly compact package, the game changed completely. Shooters got lighter recoil, smaller guns, plentiful ammunition, and affordable practice. 9mm became America's default carry cartridge because it solved a lot of problems at once. But today, more shooters are asking a different question. What else is available? And that's where this story really begins. Have you ever fired a Shield Plus chambered in 30 Super Carry and noticed how incredibly smooth the gun feels during recoil? The slide seems to glide through its cycle almost effortlessly. That sensation isn't accidental. Federal didn't design this cartridge as a marketing gimmick. The goal was to improve the concealed carry equation for people who pay attention to every ounce of weight, every fraction of an inch, and every extra round that can fit into a magazine. The 30 Super Carry launches a 100 grain HST at roughly 1,250 feet per second. From a ballistic standpoint, it operates in the same neighborhood as 9mm. The difference comes from the smaller projectile diameter. Because the cartridge takes up less space, magazine capacity increases. A pistol that once held 10+1 can now hold 13+1 without growing larger. That's not marketing language. That's a measurable difference in real guns with real magazines. On the range, recoil feels slightly softer than 9mm. It isn't a dramatic change, but it's enough to help speed up follow-up shots and maintain tighter control during rapid strings of fire. Shooters trying to tighten groups with compact carry pistols often find the cartridge surprisingly easy to manage. Of course, there's a trade-off. 30 Super Carry isn't exactly cheap. Defensive ammunition commonly sells for around $35 per box, but federal loads feature nickel-plated brass sealed primers and clean burning powders. Consistency has been impressive, and HST projectiles continue to expand reliably even from short 3.1-inch carry barrels. 30 Super Carry isn't trying to replace 9mm everywhere. Instead, it offers a specialized solution for shooters who want additional capacity without carrying a larger handgun. And for anyone carrying appendix every day, the difference between 10 rounds and 13 rounds may matter more than it sounds. The first time I handled an FN57, it felt less like a traditional handgun and more like a lightweight carbine disguised as a pistol. That unique feeling captures exactly what makes 5.7x28 so different. Rather than overpowering 9mm, this cartridge takes a completely different approach. It emphasizes speed, low recoil, capacity, and flat trajectories. The cartridge typically launches a 40-grain projectile, measuring approximately 0.224 inches in diameter at speeds around 2,300 feet per second from a 5-inch barrel. Calling it flat shooting almost feels like an understatement. I've zeroed one at 25 yards and found very little deviation even out to 75 yards. Compared to 9mm, bullet drop becomes almost insignificant. One thing that stands out immediately is feeding reliability. Bottleneck cartridges naturally guide themselves into the chamber more smoothly than many straight-wall designs. Whether shooting an FN57 or a PSA Rock, feeding feels exceptionally clean and consistent. The PSA Rock brings another advantage to the table: a 23-round double-stack magazine. That kind of capacity is hard to ignore. The FN57 uses a polymer over steel slide assembly paired with an internal hammer-fired action. Controls are fully ambidextrous, and despite the slide riding slightly higher than many striker-fired pistols, muzzle movement remains remarkably controlled during rapid fire. Ruger's version follows a similar philosophy with an aluminum slide, hammer-fired system, and 20-round flush-fit magazines featuring steel-reinforced feed lips. The overall experience is dependable, predictable, and easy to shoot well. The downside, of course, is ammunition cost. Premium defensive loads like Gold Dot and Elite Defender often run between $38 and $50 per box. Still, when you combine minimal recoil, exceptional trajectory, impressive capacity, and the cartridge's ability to defeat certain soft armor threats, the appeal becomes easy to understand. This is not a casual, plinking cartridge. It's a purpose-built round designed for shooters who value speed, reach, and precision. But not everyone wants lightweight projectiles moving fast. Some shooters want raw power. If that sounds like you, then it's time to talk about 10mm. The moment you pick up a Springfield XDM Elite chambered in 10mm, you know you're dealing with something different. The weight, balance, and overall feel communicate a very clear message. This cartridge wasn't created to follow trends. It was built to deliver serious performance. Press to trigger, feel the slide cycle, and the distinction becomes obvious. This is a different class of handgun power. 10mm is attracting shooters not because of internet hype or nostalgia, but because many people want greater capability. They want more energy, more range, and more confidence when facing situations that go beyond everyday defensive scenarios. A 200 grain Underwood XTP traveling around 1,250 feet per second can generate nearly 700 foot-pounds of energy. Those numbers place it above many traditional .357 Magnum loads while still allowing the shooter to enjoy semi-automatic capacity advantages. The XDM Elite OSP showcases what the caliber can do. It comes optics ready and features a match-grade 5.25-inch hammer, forged barrel, a fiber optic front sight, an adjustable rear sight, and Springfield's Meta trigger with a crisp, repeatable break. The forged steel slide wears a durable melanite finish that handles sweat, moisture, and harsh conditions without complaint. The grip texture strikes a nice balance. It provides excellent control without becoming uncomfortable during extended shooting sessions. Magazine capacity reaches 16 rounds of 10mm, giving shooters full-size pistol control paired with a cartridge that once lived primarily in revolver territory. Ammo prices remain higher than 9mm, with defensive loads often costing $30 to $45 per 20-round box. But most people aren't buying 10mm to casually shoot paper at close range. This is the cartridge many shooters carry in bear country. It's the gun riding in the truck once civilization starts disappearing in the rearview mirror. It's chosen because it offers a substantial performance margin when more power matters. But there's another option for shooters who prioritize speed and barrier penetration. Let's talk about .357 SIG. The first time I recommended this caliber wasn't during a product demonstration or a controlled range event. A friend simply asked me what pistol cartridge I would choose if I needed something that shot flat, hit hard, and handled barriers exceptionally well. My answer was a SIG P229 chambered in .357 SIG. Not because it looked impressive, not because it was uncommon, because it solved a very specific problem. .357 SIG is essentially a neck-down .40 Smith & Wesson case firing a 9mm diameter projectile at extremely high velocity. A 125 grain spear gold dot routinely reaches around 1,400 feet per second. That's genuine velocity, not marketing hype. The cartridge was specifically designed to maintain effectiveness after passing through obstacles such as automotive glass, sheet metal, and other common barriers. That mission remains one of its strongest selling points. The SIG P229 handles the cartridge beautifully because the platform was engineered around it. The pistol features a stainless steel slide machined from bar stock, a durable alloy frame, reinforced locking surfaces, and a recoil system tuned for the cartridge's sharper impulse. Everything about the gun feels substantial because it needs to be. This is not a caliber people choose to stand out from the crowd. They choose it because they want exceptional velocity, reliable expansion, excellent accuracy, and impressive performance through barriers. Beyond 50 yards, the round remains remarkably flat shooting. Through materials that challenge many other handgun cartridges, it continues delivering dependable results. Still, some shooters want something even faster and more unconventional. That brings us to perhaps the wildest cartridge on today's list. Let's dive into 22 TCM. Take a Rock Island Armory 22 TCM 1911 to the range, fire a few shots, and watch the reaction from everyone nearby. Heads turn immediately. Part of that comes from the noise. The cartridge produces a sharp, distinctive report unlike almost anything else commonly found on a pistol range. That sound is your first clue that 22 TCM plays by an entirely different set of rules, built from a shortened 223 Remington case. This bottleneck cartridge launches a 40-grain projectile at approximately 2,000 feet per second from a 5-inch barrel. Those speeds create an incredibly flat trajectory that leaves traditional handgun rounds struggling to keep up. The cartridge is known for impressive performance against barriers and hard materials, yet recoil remains surprisingly mild. In fact, many shooters find it softer shooting than 9mm despite its dramatic velocity. That combination is what makes 22 TCM so fascinating. Rock Island's TCM lineup serves as the primary platform for the cartridge. The full-size FS model features a Parkerized steel frame, fiber optic front sight, skeletonized hammer and trigger, and a 5-inch ramp barrel optimized specifically for TCM pressures. The operating system is tuned around the cartridge, creating a smooth and reliable shooting experience. One particularly attractive feature is the included 9mm conversion setup. The pistol ships with a 9mm barrel and recoil spring, effectively giving shooters 2 calibers in one handgun. Capacity varies between 10 and 17 rounds, depending on the configuration. Ammunition generally costs between $25 and $35 per 50-round box. ArmScore remains the primary source of factory ammunition, so choices are somewhat limited, but performance often compensates for that limitation. The result is a cartridge delivering near rifle velocity from a handgun that feels more like a competition pistol than a traditional defensive sidearm. After spending time with all of these alternatives, the fast ones, the heavy hitters, the flat shooters, and the barrier specialists, it becomes much easier to understand why conversations about calibers are changing. 9mm is still incredibly capable, but many shooters are now looking for something tailored to a specific mission. Walk into a gun store today and you'll notice that 9mm no longer dominates every conversation the way it once did. It remains the dependable workhorse of the handgun world, but serious shooters, daily carriers, and people who spend time thinking critically about real-world applications are increasingly exploring more specialized options. And honestly, that makes sense. I've watched 357 SIG chew through automotive glass with impressive consistency. I've seen 10mm hammer steel targets with authority that immediately gets your attention. I've spent time behind both the PSA Rock and the FN57 and experienced firsthand how flat and fast 5.7x28 can be. And 22 TCM remains one of the most unique and entertaining handgun cartridges available today, delivering rifle-like speed from a 1911 platform. These calibers aren't simply alternatives for the sake of being different. They solve specific problems, and no single cartridge solves every problem equally well. That's the real reason this shift is happening. 9mm didn't suddenly become ineffective. The industry simply developed more capable options for specialized roles. Today we have premium loads such as Federal HST in 10mm and Speer Gold Dot in 357 SIG. We have reliable handgun platforms built specifically around these cartridges. We have ammunition manufacturers investing resources into expanding choices and improving performance. Most importantly, shooters themselves are becoming more deliberate in their decisions. They're choosing calibers based on intended use rather than default assumptions. And that's exactly why, here in 2025, more shooters than ever are stepping away from the automatic choice and loading something different.